What's up, Tom?
It's awesome being with you here, Joel.
Yeah.
This guy is a barrel of laughs. It's like a non-stop party when you're with Joel. You never know what he'll do. I guess we were both technically JWs. You can believe that.
Don't believe a thing he says, Tom. I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I mean, I remember falling asleep to more than one or two JW fairy tales in my life, and so...
You fell asleep?
Well, not that your story was boring or anything like that, don't get me wrong.
It's like taking NyQuil. The past that is kind of our common experience is being associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is an anomaly of the 20th century. To me, it is something that is an aberration, unique in quality, never seen before on Earth, and perhaps never again to be repeated. It was the phenomenon called Jehovah's Witnesses. Some people have theorized that it is a government experiment. It's been pretty well established that it was at least funded by the government and is connected to many shadowy figures that most people don't even know about, and so there may be an element of truth to that. It seems like something that shouldn't have happened, which is the strange thing, is that there's no good explanation for why it's happening. There are many things that don't seem to make sense. Where does all the money go? It doesn't seem like it's spent on anything. Well, what people know is that the Watchtower Society has collected billions and billions of dollars over the years. What was it all for? Who could say? I mean, it's not even spent on... Everything they get is for free. Everything is donated to them. All the work is free. Everything is given to them, and then they tell you they need more, and then they collect money and money and money and everything. And it's not even like it's Trump Tower where somebody's sitting on a golden, throne or something like that. It's just it's 100 years of collecting and collecting money. It seemed to evaporate. It's 100 years of people working and working and working, and nothing happens. It doesn't go anywhere. Things are cycling. It's almost like a hamster wheel thing where it's a constant thing where people are working their fingers to the bone. People are like skeletons that are just like flying themselves apart, but it all amounts to nothing, and it goes nowhere. And
you have the opportunity to lose everything at any given moment.
Absolutely. And when you do lose everything, it's like a roulette wheel. Your number can come up at any time because everyone who is a Jehovah's Witness is committed to disfellowshipping offense. So it's just a matter of time if and when your number comes up. But when it does, most people have gone flying off the Ferris wheel. A lot of times Jehovah's Witnesses land, they dust themselves off, they eat crow for a while, and then they return to the carousel ride. Other people, they fly off and land in the thistle and thorn and are never to be seen or heard from again, except for JWs that when they're sitting at Country Buffet and they're talking about disfellowship people, your name will come up. But
you have to get okay with the idea of people just leaving your life for no reason. Pretty much people just ghosting, and no one ever hears about them again. No one asks, nobody cares. It's just one of those things that happens, and it's okay in JW world because it's pretty much normal for them. It's the strangest thing. They have people that just ghost out of their lives, and that's it. They're just out there. Oh well, they're not a JW, or they're not an apostate, or people just stop talking about them. And that's one thing I think is so strange. Is like, I have a cousin who no one knows anything about him. No one knows where he went. Nobody knows if he's doing okay, if he's alive, or if he's dead. He's literally disappeared. And I can't help but think that it has something to do with the JW land stuff. The JW-itis. That's what I think. It's just strange to think that they have to be okay with people exiting their lives like that. And, it's love, but it's only if you do your job. I'm only going to like you if you're doing A, B, and C. If you wear tight pants or something, I don't know, maybe we'll cut that part out, but
leave that part in, please.
The conditional love, I think, is it's part and parcel. I think it works its way in there, and it's part of why people are okay with ghosting, because it's just It's strange how they take the unnatural and they live it as their everyday reality, and they take something that should be unnatural and they turn it into, it's just everyday. It's just business for them. You know?
It's unnatural that someone could be your family and your, you know, they call it the group the friends, but any one of the friends can turn into an enemy by next week.
Yeah.
And it's not a hypothetical thing. It's a real thing that happens almost like clockwork. It's almost like a monthly thing that someone that is one of the friends becomes one of the enemy, or they become in a debased state, which is actually worse than somebody that's been in the world their whole life. Someone that's been in the muck and mire their whole life and has no respect for Jehovah, knows not of Jehovah. But somehow those people will remain throughout their lives of not knowing Jehovah, nor they'd curse Jehovah as soon as look at one of his magazines. But someone who has spent their life trying to measure up to Jehovah, when they fall short of that measurement, will be debased to a lower position than the person that would spit on Jehovah's grave. And it's I think where a lot of people I've known over the years found themselves at odds with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I won't say not at any fault of their own, but despite their best efforts to have their life turn out a different way, they just failed. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that their goal in life was to get on Jehovah's bad side. That's just how the cookie crumbled.
Sometimes things will happen that will, you know, for whatever reason, leads people away from this cult and into kind of like a new reality, alternate reality. You know, because it's a cult. You know, they have these invisible walls that they have up all over the place. They're not only mental, but sometimes physical. It's not every day that your social circle cuts you off. That's not normal. And so I think that this whole situation has the capacity to catch people off guard, and they're being forced into an arena.
Good.
And having to face things that they don't ever, you know, they've never even contemplated before, except for maybe out of, you know, looking at it like, wow, that looks pretty scary. I hope that never happens to me.
A lot of people will live their lives and not have to face the reality of being alone. And it's not a punishment. And if that is something that you are dreading, maybe you should spend some time alone and find out why. Especially if you are reliant on other human beings for your projected future, maybe it isn't such a bad thing for you to stop and find out why.
You know, judging from meeting you and everything, it's hard to imagine, Tom, no offense, it's really hard to imagine you out there knocking on doors. So you were a door knocker for Jehovah then?
I started before kindergarten, man. That was my career.
You're the son of an elder, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. How was that growing up? Did you feel like you could get away with things compared to other kids, or were you held to a different standard?
No, my dad was not that type of dude. He was a very by-the-book elder. He was not a huge hypocrite, my dad, but he was a great guy in many respects, but in other ways he was authoritarian. He was very much company man, but he was also he was very fair. Like we were the type that studied our watchtowers. We were on time for the meetings. Like, you come home on Thursday night, dinner, shower, meeting. We're not the type of family that skips the meetings or half the family shows up. It was very regimented. And I began door knocking age 4. So before I had done my first day at kindergarten, I had already been knocking on doors, which, by the way, was my idea.
And the 80s would have been a special time to be a JW. You're a little bit older.
Oh, yeah, you're very popular. If you were a JW in the 80s, yeah, you were very popular at school. You were a big hit. And the other kids embraced you with just the warmth and loving understanding of recognizing that you were different from them, but that didn't matter.
You know, I don't know about you, but I mean, everyone seemed to think I was super cool because I didn't celebrate birthdays or Christmas or anything. I mean, I didn't get any sort of lashback from any of that. I mean, it was totally normal, I think.
By the way, if you think that a professional football player kneeling during the national anthem is a big hit, wait until you tried it 30 years ago in a small Midwestern town, and you're just a kid, and you're doing it for Jehovah. Just think about how popular that was, and all the rewards you got from doing that.
It was a special thing.
Yeah. Oh, and you didn't do it just once every Sunday for a few weeks like a football player did. You did that for years. Every single morning. 30 years ago.
We can't be any part of the world, Tom.
So, imagine all the beatings that didn't happen, all the things that weren't thrown at you, and all the people that didn't call you names, and all the teachers that, by the way, really supported you and didn't punish you, or imagine all the good grades you got and all the good things that happened to you, and just the joy and exuberance that you got to experience every day of your life for decades.
I remember when I was a kid being told that I couldn't do literally everything that I wanted to do. Baseball, can't do that. Boy Scouts, can't do that. Having to turn people down for parties, having to explain to friends why I can't go to their birthday party. Jehovah doesn't want me to do it. Sorry, buddy. Well, sorry, he's more, it's sorry.
But you did get to do things, though, like push your desk out into the hallway in front of the entire class when somebody had a birthday in the class. The teacher would stand up and cross their arms and watch you take 2.5 minutes pushing your desk out to the hallway so you could sit out there and listen to other people laugh. And then after it was all over and it's time to do homework again, you get to push your desk back inside.
You don't have to tell me what it was like growing up. You don't have to go into the detail about what you're like, like if you were abused or whatever. It's kind of like, I get it. You don't have to even explain it. I understand. It's okay. I get you. I get you. I understand.
Me too. All you have to say is Jehovah.
Yeah.
Jehovah. Like, even if you're like sitting behind jail bars or whatever, all you have to say is Jehovah. Like, I understand. I pardon you for whatever happened.
I feel like compared to back then, I'm living in this completely different reality. I remember when I was a kid thinking, this is pretty miserable, but being disfellowshipped looks like it's terrifying, so I'm just going to stay put and do what I'm doing. I remember thinking that quite a bit when I was a kid. Not necessarily thinking, hey, I'm having a great time, but more or less wanting to escape, not knowing how to escape, and being afraid of the consequences of escaping. So I was catching myself just like, well, I'll just stow that thought and not think about it and go along and get along and go knock on some doors, because that's what Jehovah wants anyways. It's a disgusting mindset you get trapped in, and how they coerce people. What does it even mean? All the money they make and everything, where does it even go? I think they could make just as much money without having to ruin people's lives, without having to tear apart families, without having to have all the it would take no extra effort.
It isn't about money. It can't be, because like you said, they could make more money by not disfellowshipping people. Or if they would modernize or mainstream, even just incrementally, even if they were just like Mormons, they could outpace the Mormons are 5 times what they are, 10 times what they are. But they could easily have outpaced the Mormons, because their doctrine is more sound than the Mormons. The Mormons is nonsense. Jehovah's doctrines are something magical in that they're true and also not true. It's a joke. They have something that is going on that is more valuable to them than money.
Leaves me feeling that it's some sort of an experiment for the NWO. I mean, it leaves me thinking in those terms, because nothing else really makes sense. And who knows? Maybe there are a bunch of reptilians running the whole thing and we're all wrong. But it's hard to make sense out of something that just doesn't make sense. How do you apply logic to this situation? There's no real way of doing it. I've heard stories before. Remember Propaganda Techniques? He told me a story about how he was in charge of the security.
Yeah, he lived by Patterson.
Yeah, but he's describing, if he is to be believed, which lines up with what other people have said about underground complexes and secret rooms and weird satanic, rituals and stuff.
They have a massive.
Do you buy into any of that stuff?
Absolutely. First of all, Propaganda Techniques has never lied to me. I've known the man for years. The man has never lied. There are tunnels and complexes beneath Patterson, but also beneath Brooklyn. And you better believe, now I don't know this, but you better believe that Warwick has a massive underground facility. Brooklyn even had tunnels that connected with each other beneath there. They had storage areas and things like that.
Nobody really knows why. It's all kind of hush-hush.
After I had left the organization, I had started reading the book of Gnosticism. I also read a book collection called Man, Myth, Magic that was about Jehovah and explained who Jehovah actually is, which he is a derelict, which is how the other spirit entities identify him, is that he's almost a joke of the spirit world in that he is kind of an average spirit that pretends to be God. And that's his thing. But he's also known to be very lazy to the point of being like derelict. The thing about Jehovah, everything he says is, he's like a used car salesman. Everything he says is true, but also not true. It's something that is reflected in the Freemasons, that everything is almost like a riddle for them because they talk with a forked tongue, and that there's an element of truth to everything they say, but there's also a double meaning. And
so
Jehovah's
that's
the same
a personality
way.
Trait that I see, that kind of extends into the JW.
Absolutely. They talk about living forever. Well, they are going to live forever. You die, which they've always said that's the truth. They say, oh, any individual Jehovah's Witness can die at any time, but the organization continues going. Well, did they lie to you? Is it not true? Jehovah's Witnesses always keep going. The hope is still alive. The individual Jehovah's Witnesses die, but they continue living. Jehovah does. He is creating his kingdom on earth. The work is ever increasing, is it not? They started in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then they expanded all over the world. Now, Jehovah also says that who checks his hand and who says to him, what are you doing? Nobody calls him to account. It's the other way around. Well, did Jehovah lie to you? Now, you could say isn't totally honest about who he is or what he's doing, but he's always been the unfinished mystery. He's always been the one that has the secrets. He's very upfront about that you don't know who I am or what I'm doing. My expressions are like toads that leap from the ground, things like that. It is not for you to have understanding. These are things that are indecipherable to you because you are not of that class.
My thoughts are higher than your thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. And so Jehovah, he tells people right up front, you can't understand what I'm doing.
So are you describing...
Almost everything he says has a double meaning, and also it's he doesn't have a reputation of doing good things for people. By the way, he is not the creator of the universe. That's all wordplay. He creates.
The Jehovah Witnesses is not the God of the Bible. He is not.
Jehovah is not the creator of the universe. Jehovah is one of the lower gods, according to the Gnostics and also the Freemasons and other things that you can look up and research on.
So
Jehovah's
the word itself supposedly came along about 700 years ago from a Catholic monk. You said a few centuries. Does this Jehovah, it's like a newcomer to, did he take like the Judeo-Christian writings and adopt them and say, I'm going to take over the personality of this?
The letter J wasn't even invented in Bible times, so why do they stick so hard to this? It's like they thump their Bible and say, Jehovah, this, Jehovah. I'm sure you've seen videos where people say, Jehovah translated means destroyer. Well, who's the destroyer? The Freemasons say, as above, so below. Everything is like a backwards reflection. It's why in Watchtower magazines there's been pictures of upside down crosses. It's a joke, by the way. It's all funny to them. The reason they call their followers the sheep, they're making fun of you. It is a joke to them. There are different echelons to the religion themselves. The people at the top are Freemasons. The people that should have been dead a long time ago are still feeding off the life force of others, especially children. Anyway, I'm sorry I got sidetracked there. Jehovah is somebody that speaks in riddles. He has corrupted the Bible. He has done an incredible amount of destruction. Not in my opinion. These are other people's writings. People that have studied Jehovah, Yahweh, his his origins, and he is a very lazy spirit creature that has lived for many centuries. He wants you to always do for him. He doesn't give anything back. By the way, if you say, Tom, you're so bitter. You're one of those bitter ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, let me tell you something about me. I spent a quarter of a century, which is a long time for a little bug like me, doing everything Jehovah's way. I was born into Jehovah's organization. I was immediately obligated. I began doing his work, which he doesn't do. He doesn't do a flipping thing. I did the work. And I did it for a long, long time. I didn't get any money for it. In fact, I spent my own money that I made from doing very menial things like emptying trash cans and cleaning restrooms. I wasn't perfect, but I largely did everything that was asked and required and expected of me. I went door to door. I cleaned Kingdom Halls. I went up on stage and gave insipid talks with just ridiculous that was beneath the intelligence of even the audience of sheep that you're delivering it to. I gave ridiculous answers that weren't my ideas. Look, none of this was my idea. You're mad at me? Watching this right now? Well, what did I do? Think about it. What on earth did me or Joel or we didn't cook this stuff up.
We made the
just got
mistake of
plopped
learning
here.
the truth about it, Tom.
We made
That's
the
mistake that we made.
No, we made the mistake of getting born. This was inevitable because since the beginning of Jehovah's Witnesses, before the internet or anything like that, there was people that didn't fit in. Well, Joel talks about the people that disappeared. There's been 100 years of people that disappeared and faded into nothing. And now you're mad that some of the people... Look, Jehovah's been having it his way for 100 years. Of thumping their it's not even Bibles they're thumping. They're thumping Watchtower magazines that now they have disowned. I did things Jehovah's way for 25 years, essentially. Now, Jehovah had 25 years to help me out even that much. He didn't do it. It didn't do it. In fact, I kind of felt like it was almost like a joke where he was throwing me under the bus all the time.
So you're saying that you didn't experience any of Jehovah's rich blessings that we were promised?
Well,
I did recall them saying something about rich blessings along somewhere.
Well, Jehovah...
We were supposed to get something out of it, right?
Well, look, you can't outsmart Jehovah because Jehovah says, who gives you the air that you breathe in your lungs? The sun... Does not the sun shine upon the rich people just the same as you? You're enjoying the same sunshine somebody sitting on a yacht is, and then you're humbled. Look, even the elders, the adults, all of them had 25 years to be nice to Tom. You had years and years of me doing the right thing by other people, and you having an opportunity to do that much right by me. Not anything I'm demanding from you. I didn't ask anyone for money. I didn't ask anyone, can I live in your house? Or anything like that. Just the common decency. You had 25 years to treat me like a human being.
No, sorry, you don't get any of that. In fact, we're going to steal your family from you and everyone you ever held dear. And it's your fault on top of it all, you piece of shit.
Well, that's the other thing is there is no way, like Joel was saying, you can't win in Jehovah's world. You can only, you're like a puppy dog treading water. You can only tread water. You can never make it to the shore. You can only tread water or drown. Those are the only options. And the thing is, when you fail Jehovah, which is inevitable, either you're treading water or you eventually fail, it is your fault. It's not Jehovah's fault. What did Jehovah do to you? What did Jehovah do to you? He gave you the air that you breathe. He's writing the contract. You're getting the short end of the stick no matter what happens. You were born Jehovah's Witness. You were obligated from birth. You were obligated to the organization. If you talk to a Jehovah's Witness, they say, no, he wanted to go out in service. You think we put a suit on him and told him it was his idea? Why, we even have it on tape. We got the recorder out. See? He said he picked up his own book bag. He loves Jehovah.
He'll tell you himself.
We couldn't talk him out of it.
Yeah.
The little guy loves Jehovah. We couldn't stop him. He loves and he loves everything that happens to him at school too. Anyway,
do you think
he is infinite darkness? If you're asking on a spectrum, I want you to imagine a chasm of darkness that is infinite. Jehovah says he has no beginning and no end. He has no intention of ever stopping. It's a never-ending harvest. Like you were talking about the Matrix. The way that the aliens are feasting off the minds and the life energy of the people that are connected to their tubes. Probably all heard of Brother Greenlease and Brother Barr. I even met Brother Barr when I was at Bethel, and he was the Winnie the Pooh guy. You've even heard some of these guys narrating Watchtower tapes. And they sound like your great-grandfather if you lived in the Shire. In the Bible, they're always talking about, oh, the harvesting work and everything. It's like, what are they talking about? Like, barely anyone comes... Like, you go door to door your whole life, nobody becomes Jehovah's Witness. You know, they're talking about, oh, the work is so great, but the workers are few. But it's like, how could the harvest be great, but the workers are few? Because Jehovah's Witnesses, there's like millions of them, and the people that come into the truth from the door-to-door work is like nil. Jehovah's Witnesses, their power comes not of this earth, it comes from the spirit realm. There is light and darkness, and all of us at every moment are choosing darkness or light. And all of us are a mixture of both, because we are human. That's the nature of human life. Nobody's a white sheet of paper. Everybody's got scribbles all over the place.
They don't take someone who's just like evil through and through. I think that they will take people that are still basically good people, and at the end of the day, they're still doing evil things, like showing up for that hospital liaison committee and making sure that your 6-year-old's not going to get that blood transfusion.
In my estimation, it's a reflection of a reality that is possible for anyone. By the way, the concepts of light and darkness don't begin or end at the Kingdom Hall door. When you walk out of the Kingdom Hall door, it changes a little bit in that you can't blame Jehovah anymore. Now, some of you out there are doing worse things than you've ever done in your life. You are still being a Jehovah's Witness if you say, Jehovah made me this way. I guess in a way you're still boldly going forth and prophesying for Jehovah, because Jehovah said, aren't you fulfilling Jehovah's words? Well, yes, they're coming true. Let me tell you something. Everybody that ever lived in the history of the universe, they're gonzo, man. They don't exist anymore. You're alive? You exist? Let me tell you something. There's about 10 billion people that were better than you that aren't even two pieces of dust sticking together anymore. They're gone. And you're going to join them in the netherworld. I didn't get this. This was the way I wanted. Guess what? You could have been stillborn. Happens every day. You know what? You could have been in a baby carriage, and your Protestant, church-going normal family crosses a divider, and your baby carriage goes to the windshield, and you're spaghettified. Well, Tom, that's not what's supposed to happen. And now you want to tell me about how your parents did you wrong because they were Jehovah's? Give me a break. You had the advantage and the blessing of being in Jehovah's kingdom because Jehovah spoke truths to you that you weren't even prepared for. You probably don't even appreciate to this day. The follies of human nature. The futility of man's endeavors. Was Jehovah lying to you about these things? The things that you learned at the Kingdom Hall, how many of them were actually lies and untruths? Well, they lied about Armageddon. You sure about that? Do you think that the world around you will not come to an end? I assure you it will. I promise you, not a stone will be left upon a stone. The Voyager spacecraft will still be flying through the universe after the human race has been extinct for 1,000,000 years. Think about that. Jehovah talks about fire and sulfur coming from the sky. That fire and sulfur still exists. It's just at the tip of nuclear missiles. I don't think Jehovah's had his last say. Atheism is a cop-out. It's saying, I don't have to accept that there is anything that I don't understand. And religion is a joke too. People say, if only my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, they would have been a different religion. and say, yes, but the Jehovah's Witnesses lied. Well, that's what religion is, believing things that aren't true. You know that. Everyone knows that deep down inside. People that go to any church, they know that. Who do you think you are? What you call truth or non-truth is your perception of a tiny sliver of your perspective of something that you can only see that much of. Look, they know of 11 dimensions. They know that we can't see most of the universe is happening. 11 dimensions that they have figured out have got to be there that we can't see because we're bugs. Now you tell me about Jehovah not existing. Parallel universes. What you think of as the past, are you sure that's the past? Because if you talk to a scientist, they can't guarantee you that the past is the past. If the universe is actually a spider web of energy fluctuating in every direction and changing what we think of as reality all the time, what you call the past didn't happen. It didn't! Your past is your failed memory. And every time you remember something from the past, you are making most of it up. And you are rewriting the past to fit your narrative of your ego. And that is the truth. Your past didn't happen. Every time you remember one of your sob stories from the past, you are altering it. It's involuntary. I'm not mad at you. I'm just telling you something is true, and you know it's true, and you need to hear it. Your past is your perception of one tiny fragment of an actual event that may or may not have still happened, considering that universes are shifting constantly. And what you call the past is your coloring book. Every time that you go into your memory banks and take something out, you change it, and then you refile it. And then when you take it out again, you change it again. And every day that passes, every minute that passes, it becomes more untrue. So you're going to tell Jehovah you know more than he does. Give me a break. What about everyone I've ever known in my life? Where's the 100,000 apologies that are coming to me? Oh, they're not.
Are we rolling? Mm-hmm. Tom, may I ask you a question? Does the Watchtower owe anyone an apology?
What the hell for?
That's what I'm asking you. I mean, it would seem like they ruin people's lives.
Did they put a gun to your head and tell you, give me your money?
Not technically, but people would argue that they've been coerced into this whole thing.
You know what?
When you look at it, I mean, do you really think that is that? Because you almost
here's when you talk about people owing somebody something. Let me tell you what you owe. You owe your parents. You dropping to your knees and thanking them for giving you life for every day that you are alive. Because you didn't do anything to earn it. Did Jehovah lie to you about that? What have you done to deserve your life?
And what difference would it make if they did apologize? What difference would that make in your life? What's that going to do for you?
That apology is going to come. I'm going to do a little prophesying here. In maybe 15 years, 20 years, there's going to be a different version of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's going to have some young person that is the new president of the Watchtower Society. And they're going to have a different take on the whole thing. They're going to say, the old governing body, it was wrong. They predicted things that did not come to pass. But they had a misunderstanding. That was the old days. That was the old 20th century Jehovah's Witnesses. We're rebooting. We're starting over. And people are going to eat it up.
A requirement for an apology is for someone to take responsibility and own what they've done in the first place. I just don't see that happening. I really don't.
Well, those people are going to be dead.
What do you think about people that think that there needs to be some sort of a reformation? Then you're just saying, do you think this is going to happen?
The reformation is, it's already underway. It's going to happen. The people that have committed the atrocities of whatever you're talking about, those people are going to be dead in like 10 years.
Well, they're going to be thrown under the bus, and it's going to be blamed on Satan. It's going to be the same modus operandi they've ever had. They're going to say, oh, well, we were infiltrated by, dark spirit forces and all that. They're going to blame it on end time.
They're going to say Jehovah was using them, but they didn't get it right. It's the same thing they do with Charles Taze Russell,
the guys of
Joseph Rutherford,
refining the organization.
It's no different because those guys will have gotten what they wanted. They will have lived their lives, and they're going to be dead. And it's the same as Charles Taze Russell, that they will just fade into... Jehovah's Witnesses aren't going anywhere. Jehovah's just getting started. People, I hate to tell you that.
You think so? Even with the... I mean, because it looks like on paper they're a dying religion. They've just reduced from printing 6 watchtowers a year to 3. They're not doing the yearbook anymore. They're not updating huge, massive parts of JW.org website. I mean, it looks like they're dying. I mean, it's you're sure that they're still going to be around. They're not, you know.
Well, yeah, like it was 100 years ago that the Bible students were dying. It was exactly 100 years ago that the Bible students were their leadership was in prison, and you know, and their headquarters were being taken over by. You know,
you think history's going to repeat itself, and just like the Bible students,
Jehovah's Witnesses,
or Jehovah's Witnesses are going to turn into something else.
Jehovah's Witnesses, that you know, was a hostile takeover of the Watchtower Society, which was, you know, belonged to the Bible students and everything. Well, a lawyer came in and took it over and said, you know, literally threw the people out in the street. Their brothers, anointed Jehovah's Witnesses, the anointed brothers of Christ, got thrown in the street like bums when a lawyer took over the Jehovah. So that's what I'm talking about, the Jehovah carousel. That's how it works.
It just shows you, it shows you how much all about business Jehovah is. He doesn't care about people that have been, you know, working their asses off for him at any level. It's like, you know, like with, and Ray Franz reinforces that as well. It doesn't matter if you're at the bottom or you're at the top of the level. You know, you don't matter to them. They're going to chew you up and spit you out. Jehovah don't care.
No, well, that he's never said anything. He's never said anything different. Even in Bible times, I mean, people would take an arrow to the heart, you know, and it'd just be like one sentence, and they'd be like, on to the next thing. That's the way Jehovah works.
In your summation, what is the difference between a JW and an ex-JW then?
Oh, you don't have to ask me my opinion. I'll tell you official Jehovah's Witness doctrine. There is no such thing as an ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. It's part of the same system. It's why ex-JWs still go to memorial. It's why disfellowship people still have files. It's why there's still a card. You are still part of the system. And this, by the way, this is not some cute way I'm phrasing things. This is official Watchtower Society policy. A disfellowship person is somebody that is being punished and debased and put in a category by Jehovah. Jehovah's not done with them because most return to Jehovah. And this is, by the way, this is what they teach from the stage. This is not something I'm making up or my point of view on. They say that this is this is why they tell family members, respect the process, trust Jehovah, because a number of these people we will have fall back in line. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses are still they're still recognized in Jehovah's order of things. They still appear in the literature. They're in the Revelation book. They're in the Live Forever book. Their pictures are in Watchtower magazine, where they are depicted by somebody throwing up their hands and walking out the back door while the parents cry. That's part of Jehovah's system. We talk about what's more important than money is Jehovah's story. The story of Jehovah's Witnesses is not possible without that component. You can't have the Revelation climax book without the headband people. Well, who's going to hold the sticks in the air? Those sticks aren't floating in the air by themselves. And those headbands have got to go around somebody's head. Well, who's going to fulfill that role? Worldly people? They never even heard of Jehovah. And even if you told them about Jehovah, they're not going to remember it a week later. The only people that can hate Jehovah is people that Jehovah created. Well, there's only one category of people that fit that bill. You know who it is. All of Jehovah's prophecies are contained within the organization. Like something that's happening in China or something. He doesn't need anything from the world. He has his kingdom. And everything that he wants to happen is self-contained and self-fulfilling. That's why you go to memorial. That's why you call your parents on the phone. What is compelling you to do all these things? Oh, I got disfellowshipped. Let the good times roll. Jehovah's energy is still entangled with yours. Jehovah needs to have persecution. Well, who's going to be persecuting him since the government funds his organization for their purposes, since the general population at large don't pay attention to Jehovah's Witnesses for the most part because they're boring and they're non-relevant? Well, who's going to be persecuting Jehovah's Witnesses since there's no motive to? Well, it's going to be Jehovah's kids that do it. It's like Lord of the Flies or something like that. The kids start taking over. They start hitting people with paddles. No, they don't do that. Jehovah has got to have the narrative that he's the one getting persecuted, because that's his personality. And so the little babies that he made are the ones that raise up their sticks and wear headbands against him. And he's, well, as you've seen him, he's a gold man that lives on he lives on the Pleiades star system. But the people are raising their sticks against him. He lives on the Pleiades star system.
It hurts his feelings. It really does.
Well,
when people wear those hairbands and hold the sticks, it hurts his feelings, man.
He's also going 1 billion miles an hour through space on the celestial chariot, and he has a rainbow that's overhead, and then there's a prison behind him. He doesn't have a face. He's made of gold, and there's also a lamb. There's the lamb on his right side that just goes with him. The lamb is motionless, but they are flying through space.
24 eyeballs. Let's not forget those.
Yes, and he has the cattle. He has the cattle with wings around him, and he flies through space, and he has the cattle that flap their wings beside him.
And the locusts with the bodies like scorpions and the face like man. That's my favorite guys right there. Yeah. Those are the XJW guys in the Bible land, isn't it?
What the swarming
the
swarming locust?
The swarming locust skull guys from the Revelation book. I think at one point that was supposed to be us, isn't it?
No, Joel. I'm
Pretty sure it's what it is.
No, that was the preaching work.
Oh.
That was the preaching work that was unleashed on 20th century
That's
world.
obvious.
Well, we'll get the Revelation book out and do a refresher.
It's one of my favorite books. I said it twice when I was a kid. I'm all about it. To the point, it just seems like, the point you're making is that people that call themselves XJWs a lot of times, seems like, by going to the memorial and stuff, they're just playing into this game that's being set up by this Jehovah character.
If you acknowledge that there is such thing as Jehovah's Witnesses, you've already lost. If you define yourself by someone else's ideas, look, we already said at the first of the video, we didn't make any of this up. This is all someone else's ideas. You give comments at the Watchtower meeting, none of it was your idea. You never had one original thought in your life.
But you're giving these people power, though. That's one thing I've seen.
When you acknowledge that you are disfellowshipped, when you are acknowledged that you have family members, well, why are the people that you lived in a house with more important than the people that lived in the house next door? Well, you're not really doing it for them. It's for Jehovah. It's the way Jehovah wants it. It's his narrative that he has brought the sword to the earth and turned mother against father and sister against cousin. All these things. Well, that's what Jehovah prophesied. Here it is come to be. Look, who hangs out with their mom? Come on. A card? Your grandma doesn't send you a card on your birthday that you don't celebrate? What was it that you had in Jehovah's Witnesses that you're missing? I'm not getting it. Maybe you could spell it out for me. And people say, well, I want my children to know their grandmother. Why? Do they know their great-great-grandmother? Well, no. Well, I don't get. You say you don't like Jehovah's Witnesses. You say that your childhood was miserable, but you want your children to know some version of that. What for?
After all this time, I have all this family that's still in. But honestly, it's like while I can say I care about them, I don't think about them a whole lot. If tomorrow I was to hear about one of them passed away, or something, got in a car wreck or whatever. It's just, I can't say that it would be anything but a normal day to me,
People live, people die. Everyone that's ever lived has died.
They put a lot of emphasis on putting the fear into death. They use death as something that you should be afraid of. And really, once you're out, and I think you look at things and you put things in perspective, I really think that the idea of death is a childish fear. It's a really immature thing to fear something that is so natural. That's how I look at it these days versus how it was when I was in. Two completely different things. One thing I've also noticed is that you have these XJWs that are still going to the memorials and stuff, playing into the system on some level, and yet they still have the audacity to look down at JWs. Like, I've seen that, and I've kind of like,
You were JW a year ago. A year and a half ago. You were JW. You were just a lousy JW that wasn't fulfilling you weren't filling out your time cards. You are a defunct JW, and you would look down at somebody that is trying What for? Let me guess. Your life did not follow the blueprint. Your intention was to marry a traveling overseer. You intended to be one of the people in the magazines that is having a get-together in his backyard and sitting there on his patio furniture and all the friends are standing. You intended that to be you, right? It just didn't work out that way, correct? Something else happened, and over a period of 3 or 4 or 5 years, your JW life started coming unraveled and started going down the tubes. You started making mistakes, tried to correct the mistakes, but then pretty soon it all overwhelmed you, and then you faded, or you got busted by the brothers, or something to that effect. Am I in the ballpark? Well, no, Tom, that's not what happened. I had a crisis of conscience, like Raymond Friends. By the way, I believe somebody that was on the governing body, which is the most evil men on earth, but, oh, I believe one of them. I'm sure that he doesn't have his own motives and reasons for doing the things that he did, and I'm sure that everything he says is true. No, I'm sorry, you're that exception to the rule. You're the person that was studying the scriptures and realized that you did some calculations on your own, and you realized that the Assyrians took over Babylon in 587, not 607. That math didn't add up. I did the calculations on my own. And that's when I had that epiphany that the brothers have done some miscalculation in the math here. That's when I felt compelled to speak out. And, well, I took that courageous stand against the brothers, and for that reason I was shown the door. Oh, also I was caught watching porn. But those are two. I don't want to combobble those two areas. Those are just two different things that happened. Give me a break.
Just based off of what people's own words now, it seems like they put so much blame onto the JWs, and I think that they still have that propensity built into them to not want to take responsibility for their own lives and blame the fact that this or this has gone wrong, and I can't help it because I was a JW and that's just the way things are, and I'm a victim here, Tom.
Well,
about all this JW stuff. For more JW updates.
Here's what you can do. You can go back in time, get in your little time machine, go back in time 50 years, give birth to your parents, and then you raise them. How do you think they'll like that? Except you'll do it right. You'll do everything they did wrong, you'll do right. You'll be a millionaire, and you'll let them have complete freedom, and you'll educate them in the ways of humanitarianism and things like that, and you'll raise them, and then when they're adults, they'll see the irony in it. Go back in time and do that, and tell me how it works out. You had food in your tummy, you had water to drink, and so the only thing you owe your parents is a big fat thank you. There is nobody making you call your genetic predecessors mom and dad. Nobody's putting a gun to your head and telling them that's your mom and dad. And so for you to have this ridiculous story about your parents wronging you, I'm sorry, it just doesn't hold much water. And you know what? If your parents did wrong you in some way, stuff happens.
And I think that reaching these realizations and coming to these conclusions just takes time. And I think it's something that people have to really put some thought into and figure out at the end of the day, do you want to be someone who's just completely consumed with the Jehovah stuff, or are you someone who actually wants to go out and live his own life and live life on his own terms and create your own situation instead of constantly having to react to realities that people put upon you? I mean, I'm saying, like, basically from what I've observed from this whole thing is that I see people that live in a very powerless state, that give away their power to this concept of this thing that still haunts them, that still haunts their feelings and their memories and stuff, and it looks like to me like it just paralyzes them for life and success. And you're saying it's your choice to put all of this stuff behind you, no matter what they did. Because, guys, I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, well, you had a worse childhood than I did or whatever. We both know what a Jehovah is. I'm sure we know exactly what that's all about. We get it, right? But the choice is up to you at this point. You have control over tomorrow. You don't have control over yesterday.
Oh, you had to go out in service when you were 10? Well, guess what? You also had to go to school. It's all in your mind. Even if things happened in your life that you didn't like, you don't have to access those memories. You just don't. You say, oh, no, I can't. Yeah, you can't. You can never think about Jehovah ever again. You can never acknowledge the word Jehovah again. you can do a cutoff in your mind and erase everything that happened before yesterday and never think of it again. Oh no, I can't do that, Tom. Yes, you can. If you don't do it, or you're not willing to do it, that's a different thing. You don't. You don't do it. You access Jehovah. He does more for you than you do for him. People always say, oh, if only my parents hadn't answered that door, hadn't taken the magazines. Do you really think being around your Jehovah's Witness relatives would enhance your life in some way? How do you do that math? What is it that you think you're going to get out of that? Have you done these scenarios out in your mind? It's like, what if your JW family called you on the phone today and said, you win. We're going to hate it, but let's try to make this work. If the Watchtower Society went out of business, like this weekend they say, we're closing up shop, it's over. Turn the lights out. Do you really think that your parents would call you Monday morning and say, well, I don't know if you heard the news. The Jehovah thing, it's over. The Watchtower Society locked the door. Well, I guess we can pick up where we left off. Oh, what was it we were doing? Oh, wait. Nothing. That's what we were doing. You feel like somebody's watching you. You feel like somebody's disapproving of you. You feel guilt. You feel like you can't enjoy anything. I know how it is. When you watch a show like Dancing with the Stars or something like that, and you imagine yourself being on there, it just doesn't feel right. You can't even imagine yourself in a scenario of being one of those smiling people that is living carefree. You can't even imagine yourself just doing like normal things, because you always see that gallery of Jehovah's Witnesses shaking their head at you, thinking less of you. And it just doesn't feel right. In another universe, you're Jehovah. And Jehovah is you, and you have debased him. Well, Tom, that doesn't make sense. It does. It's mathematic. Yes, I know they say the universe is roughly 13.8 billion light years across. It's longer than that because space is expanding faster than the speed of light. But there is a wall that scientists can't see beyond, and that's what they call the universe. But most scientists also believe that that's not even the tip of the iceberg. What they call infinity is a never-ending arrangement of particles, subatomic particles, arranging in every possible aspect and combination. And if that is the case, then there is another universe when Jehovah's Witnesses didn't do anything wrong to you, you did all the wrong to them. Your name is Jehovah. There is another universe where you and Jehovah live together in the sky, and you're screwing everyone else over. You're just as guilty. Tom, that sounds insane. If you believe there's an infinite number of atoms in the universe, then this assemblage of atoms has to happen, where you live in a castle in the sky, and your name is Jehovah, and you have persecuted the people on earth. You don't like those apples, do you? Well, do you believe in science or not? It's amazing. You can choose to do or say or think anything at any time, and you limit yourself.
So Tom, what is the truth then?
The truth is contextual. Jehovah has his version of the truth, and it works for him. They say, well, the generation never did pass away because there's always more people being born, and those people kind of take over. Here, I'm just putting this out there. What if Jehovah's Witnesses pass beyond the veil and they do enter a paradise? In a way, they never do die, because once they put on the new personality, then that personality carries over into their next existence. And the energy that can never be destroyed, the energy of life, once we transform into a different dimension, what if Jehovah's people are still assembled before him? And what if you are in the darkness, the weeping and gnashing of your teeth? Because Jehovah this, Jehovah that, well, you're doing it all yourself, and it's the miserable state of somebody that was thrown outside the darkness.
So you're suggesting that the weeping and the gnashing of the teeth is something that people bring on themselves.
Who else can gnash your teeth for you? What is Jehovah pushing on your skull, making you weep and gnash your teeth? You've done it to yourself. What if the new personality, once that dies, that is your punishment? And that's what you had to sacrifice. Jehovah talks about the cutting off, everlasting fire. The soul is the personality. It's not the body. It's a person's personality. We know that the personality comes from Jehovah and learning these things through Watchtower magazine. What if you're disfellowshipping and you're fading? It's the withering experience of death. And that personality or that soul is what has died. And what you are now is that's not what dies and goes back into the ground. And your Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, that they get their reward in full when they cross over to the other side and they're still wearing that new personality. Well, it's just something I'm putting out there. Who can say, I guess we'll find out.
You don't really believe in Jehovah, do you?
I don't know.
Tom, thanks for talking to me, man. It's been fun.
We're going to run into the Kingdom Hall and shake sticks. No.
Yeah.
We're going to throw water balloons at the Jehovah's Witnesses. Just because we want to.
There's just no... It's not fun being a Jehovah in the first place. They're the anti-fun squad. Come on.
It works out perfectly because when you die, if your thoughts perish, then you don't know that Jehovah didn't come up on his end of the deal.
It all works out in the end, really.
You never say, well, Jehovah...
Which is actually a really messed up thing because, you know, when you think about it, if nothing really matters, and if you die and it's just blank, you could do whatever you want, and you don't have to have the worry of consequences. It sets people up for, like, the perfect, you know, sociopathic, mass murder, homicidal idiot. I mean, I'm just saying that's kind of a top.
The reverse of that is, well, Joel, what if the reverse of that is... you know how Jehovah's Witnesses excuse a lot of their actions. They don't give to charity. They do lousy things to people at the Kingdom Hall. They're cruel to people. They talk bad about worldly people. They treat worldly people bad. They treat their kids bad. What if all these things that Jehovah's Witnesses think they have a free pass on, what if they are going to have to answer for it?
I hope that ultimate justice exists, but I don't know. I just hope that it does. That's where I'm at. You know, I hope that there's some sort of a galactic backstop out there somewhere, to where, you know, if you've just lived your life as a dirtbag and then you know, it was all a secret, nobody ever found out, and then you die. I mean, to me, it's kind of comforting thinking that eventually someone's going to get what's coming to them.
Joel.
But even so, it's like, I'm going to live my own life, you know.
When you look at the universe, when you go outside and look at the stars at night, whatever force brought those stars into existence, do you really believe that the weight of the world is on any of our shoulders and that we have to straighten out the Jehovah's?
No. Take your power back from these guys. Live your life.
Put a bunch of chocolate pudding in a water balloon and throw it at them. Yeah. Run into the Kingdom Hall with a water balloon and throw it in the circuit overseer's face. Watch it explode. Well, you'll go to jail for one night. It's not a big deal.
These guys are paper tigers. Anyways, it's fun talking about this stuff. I love murmuring with you, Tom. It's great. I feel like...
We hate the Jehovah's. We just find bad things.
We just hate them. We hate them so much. We're
like gremlins. We cut their brakes on their cars, and then when they go out and service, their cars go down the ravine and explode.
And then we laugh. We cut out the newspaper.
When they feed the speaker after the meetings, I run into the people's house and throw a water balloon at the speaker, and it hits them and explodes.